evening. Good evening. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White, our Friday evenings edition. Allan, I have to give you some props. I actually like the music, the intro music to the show. I'm sitting up here doing all of this. I actually like it. It was a good look. Good look. Good look. Listen, if you guys are out there watching Detroit in Black and White, you already know what we want you to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends about the greatest show on what these YouTube streets. What we are trying to do is get our subscriptions up. And how we can do that is by you helping us out. You can catch us on all social media platforms and you can make your presence known by making comments. So this evening, I want to introduce to you Allan Lengel, Eastside Al, Deadline Detroit.
What up, Doe?
Writer of the Washington Post. We also have our downriver brother, Mr. Jim Nardone, the former chief of police for the Trenton Police Department. Hey, Jim.
Happy Friday. You don't like my music? Said live need the funk. And it's funny, I was listening to some Neville Brothers and Dr. John last night, looking at some old YouTube videos. You go down that little
Dr. John must have been in the right place or the wrong
place. That's Dr. John. That's the worst song you ever did.
Okay. I got it.
That is Dr. John, the Night Tripper. Okay. Yes. Mac Rebenek.
Okay. Well, I want to say good evening and happy Friday. Yay, it's Friday to Janet overall. Thank you, Janet. You look out for us all the time. You don't like my music, Stephanie Jackson, Karen Winston, Dewayla, Janet overall. Let me go back up.
Derek.
Derek Henry. I think I saw him earlier. Yeah, Dewayla. Welcome. Good evening. And Janet says she loved Dr. John.
Yeah, he was the best. And we miss our viewers when they're not here. Like, like my music, we start worrying about you guys when you've been gone. I'm worried about like Marlon and Kashmir and these people. Where did they go? Come back.
I don't know. Maybe they're out trick-or-treating, right? Maybe they had a Halloween party. I don't know.
But I worry about them when they disappear.
Isn't I don't like my music from Toronto?
He's up front.
Jays are playing right now, possibly the game-clinching game.
Right.
Via Ireland.
Right. Good evening, Tracy Huff.
Tracy.
Speaking of our people that watch the show, they make the show, right? And we do miss you guys when you're not here. But we want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for keeping us uplifted and participating and talking to people about Detroit in Black and White. So we're gonna have a guest come on later on, but we're gonna get to Allan. I don't know what Allan wants to talk about. We'll talk to Allan first, and then we'll go to Jim, and then myself.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about the story about Mary Sheffield.
Who?
Okay.
Originally reported by Charlie LaDuff, saying that he had some anonymous tip that she had gone down in, I think, 2019 to a place in Miami, to the Four Seasons, with a contractor, Brian McKinney, who had a lot of contracts before the city of Detroit for demolitions and other things as well. And he asked them about it, the Sheffield, the chief of staff, and he said, well, they were exploring.
They were getting to know each other.
Getting to know each other.
But weren't in a committed relationship. If that's not a guilty statement, I don't know what is a guilty statement. That's like admitting that you did something with it. I mean, as a cop, they were getting to know each other, but weren't in a committed relationship while he had business before city council. That's like, here's a confession. Just go ahead and sign it.
Right.
Well, the thing is that then they issued a statement. They issued a statement to Charlie, and they issued one to me last night.
Oh, they did.
Saying that she had rejected all contracts that came before the council involving him, which is totally not true. There's a record. We had a record of many contracts that she approved, and $200,000, $30,000, $130,000. She says that she asked the ethics board and that they came back and said basically, no, you don't have to disclose your relationship and stuff like that, which to me, there's rules. There are in the city ordinances saying you can't take gifts from people and all those kinds of things. Seems to me there's a violation there. And if it isn't a violation, if it isn't a violation, then they need to review the ethics. Because I'm sorry, if you're having a relationship with somebody and then you're approving these contracts, you recuse yourself. It's not so horrible. You say, look, I know, this gentleman for whatever reason, but I feel it's the right thing to recuse myself. She says she was told she had to vote, which is bullshit. I can't imagine that there's anybody who's obligated to vote. There's no rule that says you have to vote. If there's some conflict of interest, conflicts of interest are about perceptions, whether right or wrong, or whether you say, it's like Clarence Thomas says, I voted on stuff involving my wife, but I can tell you, we don't talk about politics in the house. Give me a break. It doesn't matter. You're under the same roof, whatever it is. So I don't know.
Let me ask you, isn't this the same person who's accused of taking this dirt and
toxic holes? There's a lot of toxic holes in Detroit. Let's just go there.
He claims.
So listen, let me say this. If this is not reminiscent of what happened over there now they call the Garden View Estates. Remember that Bobby Ferguson was in trial about this dirt, this contaminated dirt. They taken this dirt from one place and built this whole housing complex. It used to be the Herman Gardens. Now it's called the Garden View Estates. So you have these people living this contaminated dirt. This is just crazy to me. Not only is it crazy, it's outrageous, it's heartless, and it's criminal. It's terrible. But I'm like, we in the last 15 years, we just been through this. Is this happening again? Is this deja vu?
I can tell you that, when people sort of poo-poo the dirt thing and say, oh, it's only dirt or whatever, I have a good friend who, and this is in 1987, he was 34 years old, never smoked, died of lung cancer. His home, he lived on a home that was built over a landfill. His block, other people had testicular cancer, all kinds of other cancers and stuff like that. So, there is a danger there. In this case, the guy insists that he was getting the soil from a authorized vendor of the city, but they've tested the majority. It's quite a high number of sites where basically they're backfilling these sites where the homes are raised, and they fill it in with dirt. That most of them have contaminants, like high levels of contaminants in there. So
let's go to our
things. Go ahead.
Let's go to our friends. We have some questions. Where are the toxic holes located? All over Detroit, Mr. Duckett. $18,000 to, I guess they have to clean them. Is it $18,000 per hole? Or I'm sorry,
per hole.
12,000. Is it 12,000? It's eight. Charlie estimated $18 million for the cleanup on.
I think
12,000 per. Is it?
I think it's usually about 16,000, but
somewhere in that range, between 12 and 18,000 per home to do is what they think. That's a lot of toxic ground.
But you didn't get paid to move toxic dirt. That's not, when you got that contract, that's not what you were supposed to do.
Well, they didn't give him a lot of money. He only got $64 million in contracts.
Yeah, that's not a lot of money. That's shameful. That is shameful. And I wonder, I did not read the story in Deadline Detroit yet. I saw the headline.
It's the Enjoyer, right? Is it the Enjoyer?
I saw it on social
media. The Enjoyers were originally.
All the comments and everything like that. And then there was a video that Charlie LaDuff did, I guess, on his YouTube channel about this whole thing. Did this guy give money to Councilwoman Sheffel's campaign?
That's a good question.
13,000.
Was it 13,000? Okay.
He gave her that, and they were in a.
You gave her more than that.
Right.
Sounds like. I mean, I don't know whether I wasn't in the room, but I wasn't in the room where it happened. To quote Hamilton, I wasn't, and I don't want to be in the room where it happened.
Right.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear about it. I want to know about it. But this is a situation where she will be elected, and then the legal ramifications, likely if there are any, if she's guilty of anything, will come later, because that's how the system works.
I think she's covered. Look, there was a 2019 report, which I cite in there, an ethics report, where it said, it doesn't say her name, but it says so-and-so is asked if they have to disclose and stuff like that. So she may have it covered, but the question really becomes, what
do you mean have it covered?
Well, that she'll say, well, look, I disclosed it to the ethics board and they told me I didn't have to. If that, in fact, is what they decided, because the only thing that they published saying, they're telling her, be careful and do not disclose internal information to this person. But it didn't say anything about don't worry about it. And the idea that she had to vote, I just find it, if you as a conscientious politician say this is a conflict of interest, nobody's going to say, oh, I don't care, you should vote. It's like Gabe Leland he was under investigation for bribery for like a year and a half. He continued to vote on contracts. Just insane. It's like, where's the ethics there of, you have to, if in fact she did everything by the book, then the book needs to be changed.
Well, Stephanie Jackson says his name was on the city website.
Yeah, Duggan was really buddy with me.
And Mr. Duckett says Detroiters should be able to look up if they're living next to an environmental dumping ground. Mr. Brown says just a different way of saying that they were boning. Lord Jesus have mercy. Miss Sheila says we don't go in bedrooms, but the conflict of interest is a violation.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go there, but I mean,
right.
I didn't want to be in Kwame's bedroom either, or his girlfriend, or yeah. But and who cares what they do in there? It's just what they do when they're representing the people that elected them. What is the challenge?
And they say it was nobody's business what they were doing, or whatever. But as you say, it is if you're starting to vote and if it's public information. When I got to the Washington Post, and I was so new there, they asked me. Marion Barry got out of prison, got elected mayor again, and he was saying, I'm all straight with my wife now, I'm settled down. And the reporters from City Hall said, no, he's got 2 girlfriends. They had me sit out on one of the houses like for probably 3 hours to see if he would show up to his girlfriend's house. But I was like, this is ridiculous. What do I, so what?
Yeah, so what?
He's not loyal. If he's not loyal to his wife, who gives a shit? Even though he's saying he is, but who cares? But if he's voting, if his girlfriend happens to be having contracts, then that's a real story.
Karen's right. The city council affairs are the people's business.
Absolutely.
What she's doing at her own house, and I'm just glad she's getting a little action. I was a little worried about her because it didn't seem like she was getting any entertainment at all. It seems like she was so wrapped up in being a city council person that she spent her whole life working on the city council stuff. I'm glad she has a little bit of.
You're being facetious, Jim.
What do you mean facetious? I'm glad she has a personal life. I don't
think she's ever been lacking.
I'm not gonna say it.
I don't know her, so I can't say
that. Allan, right? I don't think she's been.
Yeah,
she's been missing any fun.
No, I don't think she's.
I've only talked to her, maybe once or twice. I right when she was new, I think it was 2000. Maybe 2018, we were at a election night thing, and she was hanging out there. And she seemed like a fun person, nice person. Nice. But she's got to be careful, I mean, it's too easy to be corrupted in this city if you decide you want to help everyone out, all your buddies.
Thank you, Dorian.
Get out of here. People get away with doing that stuff. They just never think that it's going to catch up with them. And up until now, nobody has talked about what has been going on, what her history is. Stephanie Jackson points out, she said 12 years and she doesn't know the rules. Absolutely, Stephanie. You don't know the rules? Ma'am, you don't know the rules. Dorian Denard says Kwame 2.0, Duggan 2.5. You have Willis Martin says, thank goodness for 100-year-old brick houses. Karen Winston says 30,000 to demolish a property, add another 18,000 to expose the dirty dirt, add on attorney fees. Hellfire demolition is extremely lucrative.
And Mr. Duckett's right. I expect that there will be some attention. The unfortunate thing when you look at the big picture is what scares me is, does this give the federal government, including the Trump administration, more authority to meddle in the business of the city of Detroit based on some of these issues?
Right.
They could create conflict and could create, I guess, challenges for the leadership when they say, well, you got elected, but, the Trump administration is not going to be afraid to come out and say, but y'all are corrupt, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. That's what concerns me.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a credible mayor, this administration has shown that they're not shy when it comes to dealing with some of this stuff, whether it's right or wrong.
Right.
Well, they did that. Look, with Kwame. I mean, the FBI was all over City Hall. And so, I mean, it's not like they haven't intruded before, but I'm not saying it was a bad thing that they intruded, but we hope we can take care of our own business. But
exactly, I guess
when you can't, you have the FBI snooping around.
Yeah.
And Dorian's always one step ahead of me. Thank you, Dorian. One of your earlier comments, I'll just say you're one step ahead of me. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, I said last week, I think it was, I said, I certainly hope that the things that we hear, I hope that those things are not true. We don't want Detroit to be the laughing stock of the nation with all this controversy. I'm hoping that the things that we're hearing, things that we've heard, I hope that it's not true, because, people are already, there's so much apathy, voter apathy. People don't have confidence in the people that they vote for. A lot of them don't even vote. They've just literally checked out. But, with some of the great things that has gone on in the city of Detroit, we don't need another black eye. We really don't. We don't.
And we need to be fair to her too. Let's, we can joke and laugh and make fun, but she hasn't been. We talk about policy violations, and it's okay. We talked about policy violations of the police department. If nobody's going to enforce the policy violations, if it's okay, I met with a group of people today that are strongly behind Mike Duggan, and they are politicos in the suburbs that are backing Mike Duggan, and they told me 125 or 100 or whatever the group is. It's a big group, and I said, well, what about this issue? And the answer was, we don't care about that issue. We support Mike Duggan. He's our guy. And I said, well, okay, he can be your guy, but that's what's wrong with this world. That's what's wrong with the free press and the news and the mainstream media. They already got behind Mary Sheffield. I searched it tonight on the internet. I don't want to say which search group. This is only a story for people like Charlie LaDuff and Allan Lengel. This isn't a story for the Detroit Free Press and Detroit News, who are bought and sold in the marketplace. They're not going to go against her right now.
Right.
Well,
you know what, though? At the end of the day, whoever is victorious on Tuesday, we want them to be victorious on Wednesday. We want them to be victorious the next year,
for 4 years,
the following year, and the following year. We have to stand behind whoever that person is. Prayerfully, they're doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, if that person loses, we lose.
Well, so why doesn't the mainstream media cover this and get to the bottom of it? That's my biggest challenge.
That was something Adolph has been talking about for months. He was like, listen, they know that there's stuff out there. And he even said the other day, that he talked to someone from the media, and they said, "Yeah, we know, but we're just not going to. We're not going to publish it." So I don't know why. We've asked, and I'm sure Allan doesn't know why, but
I know why.
Oh,
Well,
we know why.
I know why. Well, I can tell you, they're afraid. They're afraid.
afraid.
And they're just they're just uncomfortable. I mean, you have to have a backbone to pull the trigger on stories. And you want to make sure you're solid on solid ground, because can ruin reputations, can change careers. It can cause a lot of problems. And so you want to be careful about it. But the news and particularly the free press are a little too careful. I mean, look, ML Elric came out with a piece talking about all the people that she's been affiliated with and all the contributions, but that's a little bit sort of an aberration there. I mean, he's a guy who's old school journalism and stuff like that, but I think the story is, it's not the end of the world for Mary. She's going to get elected. And maybe she did the right thing by, coming out, at least addressing it somewhat, because better to take care of it now. She's got the political capital right now. Maybe she'll lose 5 points as a result, and probably not even that, but she's going to win. She'll walk into office, and it's for her sake, it's better to not have this follow her to the front door of City Hall. But I think that, I had that with Gil Hill. Another reporter and I were doing stuff about Gil Hill when he was on city council by then, but he was the head of homicide, and he was helping cover up a murder of a 13-year-old kid, Damon Lucas.
Yeah.
And we had to, another reporter and I, Norm Sinclair, we were doing a big story, an expose on this, and the lawyers from Butch Long at the time, they were reviewing the story. It was a Saturday, and they said, well, can we just take out Gil Hill's name and just say a former homicide investigator? And we were like, no. I said, you can take our names off the story if you're going to do that. And then I told Norm Sinclair, I said, we should quit. This is bullshit. Yeah. And then Norm Sinclair bullied the managing editor he said, who's the editor here? You or Jim Stewart, who was the attorney. And they finally gave in, and we got it published. But it was a knockout, drag out Saturday afternoon at the Detroit News, and we had to really, really push for it. But part of the Detroit News's fear was that if they went after black politicians, they already had an issue way back of being considered racist, and they were worried about going after black politicians. And we were like, look, whoever's in power, if they're doing something wrong. And we had our stories were solid, and we ended up doing 3 stories on Gil Hill. He never got indicted because the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office was worried about it. They were worried about going up against a big name, the guy who was in the movie.
Like Horace Sheffield and Pastor Sheard and the other guy at the church at Ray Washington's church. Who's that guy's name?
Elder Alice.
Oh yeah, Alice. Like people like that, Allan. Is that what you're talking about? Is that why the free press and the news won't report?
I don't know if it's. I'm not sure it's that, but they're just. They just. The problem is that some of the people just don't have the backbone to. It takes a lot of guts. So they always say the bigger the story, the bigger the problems. But when you go out there, you've got to have the guts. That's why we have investigative reporters and stuff who have the guts to do it, and you have to have the guts. And if you don't, that's why the Craig Mauger, who's a great reporter out of Lansing for the Detroit News, he just said he could have got a job at the Free Press, and he said, you know what, Free Press doesn't have the backbone to do what I want to do. And he kicks ass up there in Lansing.
So we have some comments. Her dad has no juice in the city. Okay, Eric, if you say so. I proof the media is biased. Stephanie, thank you. It's clear the media is biased. Allan, there's a story in Deadline Detroit I'd kind of like to touch on. If you could touch on that sometime in the show, about the concert and the Chevrolet, the General Motors thing. The Green New Deal was the last chance. And that was the last gamble. You don't like my music? Thank you. Who in public office leads by example? Karen. Hey, Karen. The question now is who and how much unnecessary suffering? And the problem is too much. Willis Martin, 9196, to paraphrase Jack Nicholson, most people can't handle the truth. And I think there is some truth to that. I think some people don't. I think they don't want the truth exposed in a lot of cases. And I think that's partially, sorry, Allan, some of the mainstream media. I mean, they sure jumped on board. And I understand why they made a decision on who to support for mayor, but we're looking at this case and we're talking about Mary Sheffield, but this is more than Mary Sheffield. This goes back to the current mayor. You know, she might have been entertaining him and buying him drinks in Miami and
the scapegoat, absolutely,
by the pool, but that doesn't. She wasn't the mayor. She's not the mayor. So we need the truth, Miss Sheila. Then quit. Yeah, and Stephanie, who always has good comments. We don't trust the voting process. When corruption is clear, they're afraid of bashing a black person after all the criticism they took from Kwame. Why the media isn't covering? Money well spent. Dorian he's right on top of things.
Well, I agree with them. Duela says if the receipts are there, then come with it.
So, and then Mr. Duckett, it's not Biden's Justice Department protecting Duggan's propaganda machine. Trump will look to embarrass her. Well, let's touch on that, Mr. Duckett. I'm going to tell you this, and I've talked to quite a few people about Doug, and it's an interesting campaign. But I think that the conventional wisdom is if Duggan wins the governorship, it'll be because Republicans elected him and not Democrats. So that's something to think about too.
I don't know. I might disagree a little bit with that. I think he's got support from both.
My point is,
yeah, go ahead.
Democrats would be voting, Republicans would be voting for their candidate. What I'm talking about is Republicans that are crossing over to vote for an independent is going to have a big influence on this election. I think there's some truth to that.
Right. Dorian Denard says the church are losing clout, though. Horace and company, the real grifters of wealth of women, are looking bad because of the whining situation. And something aren't coming to church. People are coming to church. So he's talking about the whining situation. I need to talk about that last week, where there was all this controversy about the pastor. There were different lines. If you're given, I'm just going to use an example. If you're given $100, you stand in this line. If you're given $200, stand in this line, so on and so forth. I personally don't subscribe to that. I think it's ridiculous, but clearly the lady was in the wrong line. I think she gave like $1,200, and he said, listen, this is not what I told you to do. And social media was all on it, and they bashed the guy. Of course, the woman got on and said, listen, he was not disrespectful to me. You guys got it all wrong. I thought that when I watched it, because I'm familiar with, having grown up and gone to churches and seen things like this. But here's the deal, though, for me. You've taken all this time to try to build the church. What's the rush now? And given that we're facing, although things change today, and I'm not surprised, but we're facing people who are afraid of food insecurity, right? They're not going to have food and those kind of things. And you're asking people to bring all this money to the storehouse to build the church. I just think the optics is just bad. I think the optics is just wrong. I do agree that there are always more women in the church than it is men. And I will say, because I go to a Black church, that is true. And the women are the ones that are giving. And so it's just a really, really sad situation as far as I'm concerned. I think the optics are just horrible, 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 horrible.
And hello to Linda Walker. Thanks for checking in with us tonight, Linda. Glad to see you tonight. You look great. Everybody looks great tonight. Everybody must have been out picking up candy or delivering candy or on their way
I got a question. I took a walk tonight in Midtown here. It was about 6:00, and I literally saw maybe 5 children out, and they were all together, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked a mile, and I don't know if I know a lot of kids go out to the suburbs now. I don't know. I'm not familiar with some of the neighborhoods that people are. If there's some neighborhoods like Sherwood Forest or Palmer Woods or whatever, where
those are the neighborhoods where they go trick or treating. But
Indian Village,
they're doing trunk or treat. Churches have, you pull up with candy in the trunk of your car. Of course, you have to get there early. They have to make sure everything is okay. And kids go from, trunk to trunk to collect candy. At one point in time, I don't know if they're doing that now, but they will always go to the mall. People are not knocking on doors as much as they used to. One of my girlfriends, she has a little one, and she and her family were going out to knock on doors for a little bit. But a lot of people I know, when and my sons are adults, I really didn't do the knock on the doors. We maybe went around a block or so, but I always had something at the house. It was something controlled, something safe, where I knew I didn't, you didn't have to check to see if there was needles in the food or some kind of poison, or somebody tamper with the candy and that kind of thing. And plus, the weather is so doggone funky. Now, it appears to me that adults have taken over Halloween. I've saw so many adults in costumes downtown. It's ridiculous. It's cold as heck outside.
It's not. It's the wind. It's 48 degrees, but it feels like it's 36 today. You don't like my music. It's windy and damp. So, yeah, we didn't have a great day here. Last year, I think it was like 70 degrees. But I will tell you this: I had more people that come to my door tonight than I've had in a few years, I think. Well, maybe because I was in charge of the candy this year.
Somebody here saying North Rosedale Park.
Yeah.
Great,
nice area. North Rosedale is a nice.
Listen, I want to talk about what David Porter said. David Porter said, I could have built that church myself within 20 years.
Thanks for checking in, Mr. Porter. Good to see you.
And Dominic Richmond says, I wonder what was behind the Tyler Perry donation. You know what, Dominic? I said the same thing, because clearly, I mean, the Winans, who has not heard of the Winans, and who has not heard of Pastor Winans? And because Tyler Perry is part of the church, and T.D. Jakes and everything, I'm like, what is this all about? You could have given him money 10 years ago. You could have given him $100,000 10 years ago to build a church. What is this really all about? People are clapping hands, but I'm like, there's really something, and it's because of my personality. Something is behind that. I mean, I agree with you, Dominique. What was behind the Tyler Perry donation? What was that all about? Because you could have done that a long time ago. We've been waiting for that church for 20 years. Are you kidding me?
And Stephanie asked about Free Palestine media, but genocide of Christians in South Africa. There's no coverage. I don't really understand that, Stephanie. That seems to be the way it goes. The media focuses on one. It's wrong no matter where it's done. When people are killed, whether it's in China or Africa or anywhere, Yemen, the people are being killed for no good reason. Tamika, hello, Tamika. Good evening to you. Thanks for checking in. We appreciate you being here.
Jim, we're going to go
take a break.
Yeah, we got to take a break, and then we'll come back. Detroit in black and white.
Hello, Detroit. Early voting runs through Sunday, November 2nd. You can cast your ballot at one of our 9 early vote centers from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. In this general election, we will elect the mayor, city council, city clerk, and other city officials. To find the location near you, visit our website or call us at 313-876-0190. So let your voice be heard and vote.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process.
It couldn't get any worse than.
Oh, I'm laughing at some of the comments. Welcome back to Detroit in black and white, our Friday evenings edition. I'm laughing at Dorian Denar's comment. He said, New Perfecting Church, the 20-year temple of Babel. Hilarious. Willis Martin says Tyler is being sued and wants good publicity. I don't know, but there's something behind it. I'm like, dude, you could have given that money. We could have bypassed all that, staying in this line, this line, this line, this line. That's just crazy to me.
And we're glad to see Ira tonight too. Hello, Ira. Good to see you.
Todd.
Mm-hmm. So, I thought we were having a guest this evening. He decided not to come.
Oh, he's in the hospital. I'm sorry.
Oh no!
Yeah, unfortunately, Herman Butch Ramik, who is running for mayor in Taylor, the election's Tuesday, and he's hospitalized.
Oh wow! I'm so sorry.
Is he all right, or?
I don't know. I got that from Adolph this morning. I thought it was a group text. I guess it just he didn't get it. But.
So Eric's talking about the alleged drug dealers that number 47 keep blasting to smithereens, and neither side of the aisle is asking questions.
What's really interesting about that is that I guess they have the approval of some of those governments down there. They've been talking to whether it's Venezuela or is it Venezuela?
Yes.
That they've already talked to the government down there, and they said, they've given them. I don't know if they've given them permission, but there's a mess going on down there in Venezuela. To say the least.
Right. We have another person watching. They don't want to put comments on the comment screen, but Mr. Evans said, "Good evening, Detroit in black and white." He said he's going to be the guest today, but he didn't ask to be the guest. But I just want to make sure.
He can be the guest. Alan, do you want to talk about that article that was in Deadline Detroit? I think it's fascinating to talk about.
Which one is
about the concert and the General Motors car and.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, Eric Starkman wrote a column about it, saying that General Motors is trying to bypass reporters and using influencers, on social media with TikTok and all that kind of stuff. And, it's his point is, he says, who knows, who's following people on TikTok if they have the kind of money that GM really is trying to target, certain customers, if the TikTok followers are really have that kind of, to buy a $40,000, $50,000 car. But they're trying to bypass going through the media, which is going to be scrutinize them more and review the cars. But here they're just promoting it without any filters. We tried. Look, the Duggan administration tried to do that. They hired a storyteller because they were tired of the media. They didn't want to rely on the media telling their, the narrative, and so they had a storyteller. I don't know how effective that's been. I'm not really clear on that, but
my thoughts of that are: is it a credibility issue? I understand what he said in his article, but Donald Trump got elected in this last election in spite of the media.
Right.
I guess my question is the mainstream media losing their credibility, and should the media be looking in the mirror instead of pointing a finger in other directions? I guess
I agree with you, Jim. I do think that confidence and faith in the mainstream media has waned tremendously. People looking, we've talked about this before. People are looking at social media for their news. They're looking at podcasts like Detroit Black and White. Yay. To get their news. They're looking at the Week That Was podcast to get their news. They're looking at Reality Strikes, those kind of podcasts to get their news. They do not trust the media. So, and to your point, who was that who said that Duggan hired storytellers?
He had some storytellers.
Yeah, I want them to craft the story. I don't want to be bothered with them. I'll use the mass media when it's to my advantage.
Well, here's the thing. The media should be always self-examining itself, like every institution should. But when people say they don't rely on that, they turn to social media and stuff like that for all the TikTok and Facebook and all that. Where do you think that news is coming from? It's coming from the New York Times. It's coming from all the other. It has to be generated somewhere where the Week That Was, where we can talk about news and stuff like that. It's not even if people were we may be putting a filter on it or whatever. But and the thing to me is that really is very, I mean, having been in the business my whole life, is really, really disturbing is that, and to his credit, to his genius in this respect, Donald Trump has been able to really denigrate or downgrade the currency of truth, where people don't care about. He can say whatever he wants. He talked about, he lies about figures, about production and stuff like that, and people just, they don't fact check it. It's just, so I think, yes, we have to, but Donald Trump is on a crusade like other fascist leaders have been on crusades to denigrate.
Allan, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to push back on that because it didn't start with him. All of them, all of these people lie. I mean, all these politicians lie. You don't think, and one of my favorite presidents was Barack Obama. You don't think he stood up there and lied to the media? They talked about that.
Not often. Not often.
He did it. It doesn't matter how often he did it. He did it. The point that I'm trying to make is that, wait a minute. The point that I'm trying to make is this. You said that people get their information from social media, and where do they get it from? No, you have people who are out on the streets. We have somebody who comes on the show on a regular basis. He's not looking at the news. He's paying attention to, he has boots on the ground. He's paying attention to what's going on.
People are there like that.
I'm just saying. So what I'm saying, Allan, is this. You can say that about Trump, and I'm not going to agree or disagree. What I'm saying is he's not the only one. All of them stretch the truth, which means all of them lie.
Well, let me ask you this. Does it not matter if a guy lies every single day and maybe one guy lies every fourth month? Is there a difference if you draw no distinction between that?
I have a problem with, well, if you lied to me once, twice, or three times, how can I believe anything that you say? How do you decipher what's the truth and what's not? If somebody lies every day or somebody lies 4 times a year, I don't know how you can decipher the truth.
Hey, Galen.
Well, I think you have to see sometimes where maybe somebody's sort of fudging or by eliminate, not disclosing something that they're really being deceitful or whatever. But I think there is a distinction there. But look, the media, when Trump, I hear people all the time now when you say, well, Trump lies about that, and they go, who cares? What about Hillary? Who cares?
That's a reaction I got about Mike Duggan today. It doesn't matter what he did. We're supporting him and we're behind him. So I guess my question to you and our viewers, Allan, this isn't trying to be a knock on the media.
Right.
I guess my question is, when it comes to the free press supporting a mayoral candidate or a governorship or a president, whatever the case is, are they not searching for the truth? Are they searching for a candidate that matches their narrative? And that's why people are losing interest in some of these news medias. So if they're so determined, whether it's Fox News, to convince, every now and again I watch Fox News. Those people are part of a cult, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what Donald Trump is; they're going to support Donald Trump, and it's the same way on the other side. So when I ask about the free press is in love with Mary Sheffield. That's fine that they're in love with Mary Sheffield. But how come they didn't say, because she's done some of these other things, we have a guarded approach. We're going to support her, but we have a guarded approach. She has to prove a lot to us. They didn't do that. They were like, oh, Mary, she's the greatest of all time. I just don't understand it. If you look go ahead.
Well,
you understand? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I can say that. I think Elric has put a little balance on it, but I would say that they've given her a free pass sometimes, and is Kinloch, I don't know, is Kinloch on the free pass too? The Metro Times is, Robert Davis has been pushing some stories. I didn't do some of the stories because I had a attorney friend of mine reviewing real estate documents to see if there was some legitimacy to the story, and I was very, very skeptical of the story, and I didn't publish it. But so I'm trying to be careful about that. But there is the media. Look, the other thing is there's such a small staff now. There's so little, investigative reporting. People don't want to pay. People don't want to pay for subscriptions or whatever online or whatever, but it costs money. It costs money to have. And when I was at the Washington Post, we had two major investigative teams. We had the national investigative team. We probably had about 7 or 8 people there. We had a Metro investigative team. We probably had 5 or 6 people. They had researchers working with them. I mean, they were all out, but that costs money. Those are salaries. These people were making real salaries. They were some of the top reporters there. We don't have that. We don't have it now. So this is what we're getting as a sort of a piecemeal hodgepodge thing, and it's unfortunate.
So then my question to you, Allan, and then we're going to shoot the break. Then because of that, why should we rely or trust the mass media? Because that means that you said that they have a small budget. They don't have that many people. So we're not getting the information.
We're getting some. We're getting some. The problem is, I mean, thankfully, there's also, there's Outlier, there's Metro Times, there's Deadline Detroit. I mean, we have Bridge Detroit, Bridge Michigan, the Michigan Advance. There are supplemental things. I think, public radio isn't doing as much as they should be doing, but and again, that's a staffing issue. But I think we have to now not just rely on one source to read. We have to rely on.
So my point, Allan, is this: those entities that you talked about, Outlier, the Bridge, and things, I would rather read them than read the Detroit News or the Detroit Free Press. I can't rely on them. Deadline Detroit did a story that, guess what, the Free Press wouldn't even touch. Okay, so that's the point that I'm trying to make. We're going to go to a break and then we'll come back. Detroit in Black and White, our Friday evening's edition.
Hello, Detroit. On Tuesday, November 4th, a general election is scheduled to elect the mayor and other city officials. Please return your absentee ballot by mail, drop box, or at the Department of Elections. Polls open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. You can ride the DDOT buses to the polls for free. To find your polling place, visit our website or call 313-876-0190. So let your voice be heard and vote.
We're back, Detroit in Black and White, our Friday evening's edition. I'm going to go back to some of our viewers just to acknowledge them. Tamika Rainey says the media is losing credibility. Dorian Denar says, I get my local news from Deadline Detroit. Shout out, Allan. Ms. Sheila says media not to be truth tellers, not be selective with information. You also have Mr. Duckett. He says, Duggan bought a storyteller in a demolition department, and all I got was toxic dirt from Mary's boyfriend. Hilarious. Mr. Brown says it's coming from venues, and people are just shaping their own narratives, factually or not. Galen Hardy says Breaking Points is a reputable source free of Zionist narratives. Miss Sheila said Obama is a joker. Stephanie asked you, Allan, do any Democrats lie?
Look, they all lie, but I think Trump does it with such greater freedom. I mean, the problem is, usually when you have a press conference and you cite, sometimes, look, they had fact checkers. I think it's kind of fascinating. They had a fact checker at the Washington Post. That's all he did. That was his column or whatever, the guy Glenn Kessler. And then he left, and now he has a Substack. And he was very straight and narrow about everything. Now he's just he has a Substack where he rants about Trump, but enjoy your look. I mean, I would say, some of the Outlier and the Planet Detroit. Those are good publications. It's just, people have limited staffs. We have Daily Detroit does a podcast. They do some good stuff. And together, collectively, the problem is there isn't, like I say, when I was at the Detroit News, in the 80s and 90s, we had somebody covering every single court. We had 3-4 people at City Hall. They had 3-4 people. We had different cop reporters. There was just so much. We had 2 education reporters. They don't have any of that. I mean,
Allan, another question real quick for you. Sorry, we're beating you up today, but I don't think people can separate. You're talking about legitimate journalists. These people are like M.L. Elric and Charlie LaDuff and Allan Lengel. These people are journalists. Okay, you need to tell our viewers the difference between a podcaster that comes on and shares information and a legitimate journalist, because I'm not sure everybody knows what that is anymore.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, when we talk about, and I don't know all the credibility of some of these people who now call themselves citizen journalists or street journalists or whatever. And I mean, I worked for the high school newspaper. I went to school at Wayne State for 2 years and then Michigan State for 3 years. I got my journalism degree. I've worked in newspapers for many, many decades. And I've learned along the way. I mean, I've learned, even though I had a lot of experience when I got to the Washington Post, I still evolved when I was there. And so I don't know, some of these people who call themselves street journalists and stuff like that, some of them aren't trained in the same way, but it doesn't mean that they can't do it. It doesn't take as they say, it's not rocket science or, brain surgery to do it, but there is a skill to it.
But there's a responsibility of a real journalist versus somebody that's just going on making a video or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
and I don't know if that line is so blurred now that people may pick a podcast or a blog or something and say, well, those people know what they're talking about, and they don't have any criteria. They don't have a bar that's set for them that a journalist.
Joe Rogan, who's incredibly popular, where does he get his information from? Whatever his news source is. I mean, there's conservative, liberal, there's down the middle. People sort of pick and choose, but everybody's getting it from a source where, look, the free press. I mean, the free press, and to send somebody to cover a trial, they may spend a whole week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Covering trials. When I was at the Detroit News when Chief Hart was on trial, I can't remember. That was a long trial. I was there every single day. That's resources. I write the story. My editor edits it. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to some of our co-hosts. David Porter said they love Duggan, and they're hoping that her administration, meaning Mary Sheffield, hoping that her administration would be a continuous of that. A question was asked by Stephanie. She said, would you scrutinize the information if it was about Trump or his supporters? Mr. Duckett says, Metro Times called Robert Davis an activist. They misspelled embezzler. Dwayne Denard, the major media in Detroit is bought plain and simple. The check was post-dated in 2013. Karen Winston says, this is why the economy is sucking. Mr. Allan, we hope you look at Southfield about their deed fraud. Muckraking ain't what it used to be. The Enjoyer and the Planet Detroit, Galen Harding is talking about that. Willis Martin says, I trust my lying eyes. You don't like my music says journalism is great as long as it's honest, sincere, and not some propaganda manipulation.
And that's unfortunate because a great majority of it is. And he says rolling with the news you like is the whole problem with people, because people are looking for a narrative. They're looking for a news source that agrees with their position. That's not the truth.
Right.
But I'll tell you, Jim, when you say that, when you talk about most of it, I can tell you, I mean, I still subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, New York Times, and I have friends in all those publications who are nothing but stand up. They won't even, if I get on the phone with someone and start trashing Trump, they're like, I don't want to say it. They really work hard on trying to be very straight and narrow, and people get confused sometimes with editorials. Like the Detroit News is a conservative editorial page, but they don't have anything. They're not supposed to have anything to do with the newsroom. The Washington Post had a liberal editorial page. The Wall Street Journal had a very conservative, but I had a lot of friends who were very liberal as reporters. But they were very
I'm talking about the general public, Allan, that's watching CNN because it fits their belief, or Fox News because that's kind of. I'm sorry if I misspoke. That's my fault.
I agree with that. MSNBC.
That was my point. I'm sorry. Maybe I misspoke.
CNN's tried to get a little bit more to the middle, but it's hard. It's hard. The problem was that I think Rupert Murdoch, CNN was straight down the middle, and then Fox News came along and delivered what people wanted to hear. They gave a very conservative view, and people said, yeah, and their ratings blew up, and CNN was like humiliated by that. And so MSNBC started becoming more the opposite of Fox, and they started, having a point of view and getting away from the straight and narrow journalism. So I think Fox News started it, and they became so popular that everyone tried to follow them.
Right. You don't like my music says rolling with the news. You like is the whole problem with people. He also says narratives are subjective. The news shouldn't be. Dorian Denard says suddenly it's 1914 again. Sedition Act 2.0. COVID says Stephanie Jackson said who lied about COVID?
Everybody lied about
I'll tell you, last night when I worked on the story, on the Mary Sheffield story, and I got some comments, I did some of my own research. And when I was done with the story, when I wrote it, I sent a link to Mary's chief of staff, and I said, please let me know if I sent it immediately once it was published. I said, please let me know if anything is inaccurate. And I said, I'd be glad to, I would have been, and I do that with everyone. I tell people, I said, look, if you see something inaccurate, I said, I don't want that in Deadline Detroit. You tell me if it's inaccurate, I'll fix that.
I know. Yeah. I get your point, Stephanie. I understand what you're talking about, Stephanie. I think COVID, unfortunately, was something that the people on this planet, the people that are alive when COVID hit in 2019, none of them had any idea how to resolve that issue when it came, and everybody was trying to figure it out. Everyone didn't lie about COVID. Yeah. My point is, I just think COVID was overwhelming to, so many people, so many politicians that you can criticize for what they did or not criticize them. It was a very difficult time in our country.
It was something that certainly nobody expected. No one was prepared for it. And so there was a lot of I don't know. There was a lot of what ifs. There was a lot of uncertainty, and more importantly, there was a lot of death. A lot,
and people were. It was a desperate time, and
we're guessing. I mean, even Dr. Fauci was trying. They were trying based on scientific evidence of what limited evidence they had. They were trying to get the best policy, whether it was wearing masks, because initially the masks weren't being used, and we saw it in European countries where they were saying, oh, the COVID rate is lower in like Denmark or wherever, and so we started wearing masks, and then they said, oh, I don't know if the masks are. I just had COVID again. I just got over it last weekend.
But we did have politicians, and I don't usually beat up on this guy because it's Allan's full-time job. That did say something about bleach and some other things that were just outrageous. So, I mean, a lot of people said a lot of outrageous things. People beat up on our governor. I kind of felt for our governor because regardless of what she did, I know she went to Florida. I know she did what she did. I know her husband got his boat out. But you know what? Nobody knew what was going on. So it was a very difficult time.
Well, at the end of the day, Jim, as I was telling somebody earlier today, nobody is perfect. Nobody is out without issues. And so, to stand and judge someone, I think is a stretch. I'm not going to judge somebody when I know that, I got some stuff in my closet. But it is 9:29. And I want to remind people that they need to join us again tomorrow morning from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. We're going to have a guest. We're going to be live. We're going to be live. We're going to have Sylvia Jordan, who's running for mayor in the city of Southfield. I know Miss Sheila is really interested in what's going on in Southfield. I take it she probably lives in the city of Southfield. So make sure.
And Roy McAllister is coming.
Make sure, she said, don't mention that money chasing clown. Make sure, Miss Sheila, that you watch tomorrow morning, Detroit in Black and White. You guys have a good, safe evening. And again, happy Halloween. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock a.m.
And don't forget Eric's show on Monday night either. Right?
Right.